Hello, everyone. This is Stephen Stewart, and I am the CEO of Orefinders Resources, and I'm very pleased to be here today to explain to you a little bit about Orefinders' recent investment and our strategy with Pacific Precious. And this was news released a few days ago. It's a very exciting opportunity, but it's a little bit different, and it requires some explanation in terms of how we're going to structure this opportunity to move it forward, and as well as what type of opportunity it is. Why are we going to PNG? Why is this so exciting, and where's the opportunity? Ultimately, how does this benefit Orefinders shareholders and the corporation? So we're going to go through that all in this presentation. Forward-looking statements, please refer to that, and I'll move forward. So our plan for Pacific Precious, as I indicated, is it's an investment, and it's not going to be a core focus of Orefinders in terms of our operations. Orefinders remains focused on gold only, and gold in the Abitibi region of Ontario and Quebec. That's not going to change. The reason we decided to do this opportunity and do a share swap, so there's no cash coming from our balance sheet, just a share swap, is that it was an opportunity we simply could not pass up. There's a lot of history to this project. There's a history to our team, in particular our Vice President of Exploration, Charles Beaudry, and he has 2 years experience working in PNG and has a lot of local contacts, and the valuation is awfully compelling. But look, it all comes down to the geology, and that's what got our interest. We think it's one of the most prospective projects we've seen well ever, quite frankly. And that is, of course, is a forward-looking statement, but there was an awful lot of smoke, and we're going to run through the smoke and why, and try and tell our shareholders why we think this is such an opportunity. And in terms of the structure, how we're going to do it, well, we're going to aim to repeat a very similar model to Power Ore. I think Power Ore was a great win, a win-win-win. Not to be too cliche, but it was a win for Orefinders shareholders, because Orefinders shareholders were dividended or distributed shares directly into Power Ore. Not too many junior companies offer dividends. We've done that. We're going to aim to do that again. In addition to that, we kept half of Power Ore shares on our balance sheet, so we can monetize that when the time is right. We're certainly long-term holders of Power Ore, and I suspect we'll be long-term holders of Pacific Precious, especially in this environment, which is a very tough valuation market. But on the contrary to that, that is the opportunity for us to make investments. Buy low, sell high. If you believe in that theory, that's why we're making investments in opportunities such as Pacific Precious, and that's why we've made investments in Orefinders, more core properties that you've seen in 2018, and you just might see some more in 2019. And it's also an opportunity for the new project, and that's Pacific Precious. This is the way we structured Power Ore. That was a very efficient way of going public from Power Ore's perspective. There was no shell company, no RTO that you had to deal with, and there's no IPO, which generally speaking just benefits the lawyers, as that's a very expensive legal proposition. What we did with Power Ore, for those who don't appreciate it, was a very efficient way of going public. It was cheap, and we are going to attempt to recreate that model with Pacific Precious. So moving forward, let's talk about the geology, because aside from how we got there and the structure of the deal, the geology has to make sense, and it does. And so let me tell you a little bit about Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is one of the largest islands in the world. Half of it is called Papua New Guinea. I'm sorry. New Guinea is one of the largest islands in the world. The eastern half is Papua New Guinea. It's got a long history, obviously, of mining. You can see the island itself, of course, doesn't care about political divides, but you've got Grasberg and Ertsberg. Grasberg is the largest gold copper deposit ever. You've got Frida River, Porgera, Oktedi, and you've got Lahir. Massive deposits, and Wafi-Golpu as well. I mean, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 million ounce deposits here. This is where you go when you are hunting elephants, as we say. Not that we condone hunting elephants in the real term, but you know what I mean here. These are mega deposits. So that's step one. We're in the right jurisdiction. You can see we're on trend. So that's an important thing to note. Drilling down into more details on the project itself, I want to emphasize a few things. One is this: we're not going out in the middle of the wilderness. Some people think PNG is in the middle of the jungle. This project is not. We are just a few kilometers away from Mount Hagen, which is a local town. You can drive right to our project. I'll show you some photographs there. And this is not a large or a goose chase porphyry system we're chasing. It's actually a different style. It's an epithermal system, which means it's much easier to track, a lot less expensive to drill. The message here is a very focused area that we are targeting, and the reason it's so focused because the veins come right to surface. We've surface sampled. You can see right there. Charles was on the property back in October of 2018, just a few months ago, where we did our own due diligence, and he grabbed 238 grams per gold from a sample program. That's 7 ounces, and you know, I'll be the first one to tell you, geologists never grab ugly rocks. They always grab the pretty ones. But to have 7 ounces of gold from a vein at surface confirmed a lot of our suspicions on this property. But even above the grab samples, the thing that convinced me most is the artisanal mining that's gone on in this project. And I'll get to that in a minute, but they've been artisanally mining this at surface for 70 years. So, you know, clearly there's gold there. The locals cannot be wrong. So again, this project is drill ready, infrastructure, focused area. And here's the focused area. This in the black here is the outline of our property here. This is the Kuta transfer fault. This is call it the Kuta Ridge project, the hanging wall and footwall. But this area here is really, and I'm going to focus in on some of the photographs that you'll see later. This is what we call the gold enriched corridor. We believe it's a splay coming off the major fault here. There's 2 north-south fault structures here, and in between here, this is where all the gold is. And again, I'm going to show you veins. I'm going to show you artisanal mining, rocks, all sorts of interesting things which really got our attention here. Again, just going back, this is an epithermal style deposit. We think it's high sulfidation to intermediate, which I won't get into the details there, but these are the types of deposit that are epithermal deposits in PNG. Lahire, over 50 million ounces, Porgera, over 11, etc., etc. This style of mineralization is very prevalent on the island. It's as a result of a porphyry. It's sort of a derivative of a porphyry system, but it's on the fringes. And obviously the porphyries are there because of this. This is right on the Ring of Fire, not the Ontario Ring of Fire, but the global Ring of Fire in the Pacific, which is responsible for you know, mega deposits all over that area, and we're right in it. So again, this is the style of an epithermal model. I won't get into it too much other than to say it's if you follow my pointer here, this is the porphyry intrusion, which is the magmatic intrusion that comes up. It's the heat engine, but it affects the areas all over in the region. And over, you know, here we can see that's where the epithermal, and epithermal means, you know, close to surface. Obviously that's an important part, but that's the style of deposit. It's right at surface in terms of the veins, and again, access to infrastructure is great. So this is, I showed you earlier, the gold enriched corridor. This is a zoom up of it. These are our samplings that we did here within these 2 faults, and within this, we'll call it 1.5 to 2 kilometer trend that runs north-south. We see gold all over the place. These gold grabs here, these samples, you know, many of them over an ounce in that neighborhood, one of them over 7 ounces per ton. It's clearly not a coincidence, but beyond a coincidence, again, we'll go back to the artisanal mining, but I mean, there's gold all over the place here. We see native gold in these rock samples here. Very impressive, sexy looking rocks for geologists, mineralized sulfides and arsenides, etc. There's awful lot of gold. These are the veins that run right to surface. I mean, we can see them here. This is on the left, you can see a vein. This is through a road cut right on the property, and this is zoomed in here on terms of the mineralization. These are great slides for geologists. To the rest of us, they're just interesting looking rocks, I suppose. This is the artisanal mining that's been going on. This is right on the Kuta Ridge property. this is where in the gold enriched corridor they have been mining this at surface since the 1930s. And again, the locals are not wrong. We see it right here. This is gold right from the Kuta Ridge property. These are the individuals here. These are the locals panning, sluicing, etc. This is what gets us excited. We know the gold's there. We're not looking at this in terms of an open pit. This will be an underground exploration type situation. Obviously, one of the keys to investing and operating successfully in PNG is our relationships with the locals. Our operations would not impact their surface mining, but when you see the locals mining this place, you know there's something there. And when we see, let's take a step back and look at the geology in terms of the faults in the veins and the potential there of this epithermal system. There's something for Kuta Ridge Pacific Precious share investors as well. So again, this is the history of the alluvial production. Comes right in the gold ridge corridor. These are in between these two splay faults here. They've been mining this since 1932. There were back in the day, there was actually a commercial alluvial operation. We suspect up to 170 ounces were mined at surface there, based on the infrastructure that exists in place that gives us a good idea of how much gold was taken out relative to the grades that we see at surface. So this is a little bit of a history of how did Pacific Precious get born, how did it get access to this property, and then ultimately how did Orefinders source this opportunity. So this is just a quick history going back to 1932. I won't go through all those eras here, other than to point out this here in the 1994 to 2016 period was very important. The Leahy family is a New Zealand family, and they own this property for a very long time. My understanding is that the patriarch of the family had passed away, and the estate effectively let these claims lapse. And one of Kuta Ridge's shareholders, a gentleman by the name of Kuta, was aware of the property, and he and his partner Thomas, both local geologists, both key shareholders of Pacific Precious, staked the property. And we think that was quite a coup. It was a process to confirm these claims. These claims have now been confirmed and are now 100% owned by Pacific Precious. And it's been that way since 2017. And since then, as I noted before, Charles had been down on the island for 2 years working at Freda River, where he met Thomas and where he met Kuta, and got to understand the geology of the area and got excited. And they had been in communication over these past years in terms of developing the project and ultimately getting Charles down there in person to confirm the validity and the grab samples on this project. And that's when Charles approached our team here and said, hey, there's an opportunity, you got to take a look. And so that's part of the history here. This slide sort of goes over that again. It's just telling it's so key to have local partners in districts that are outside of your backyard. The reason Orefinders always focused in the Abitibi is very simple, because we know the area, we know the customs, we know the laws, we know the people, and most importantly, we know the rocks. Here, we understand the rocks because Charles has traveled all over the world and worked all over the world, but spent 2 years at Freda River. Very important. But over and above that, it's so important to have Thomas Dot and Kuta Mel, who are, again, local PNG geologists and shareholders of Kuta. That is important in understanding the culture, the customs, and how to do business appropriately in PNG, and maintaining good relationships with the locals. So the upside, what is the upside? I think it's, again, Orefinders will own 10 million out of the 25 million shares in Kuta Ridge. That right now is 40% of Pacific Precious, which again owns 100% of Kuta Ridge. So we have a significant position in there. I think the valuation is awfully compelling in terms of what we were able to negotiate and what we are able to bring to the table in terms of assisting them and raising money. So a little bit more about that. So right now, Orefinders is doing the share swap, 10 million shares for 10 million shares. and we'll own 40%. Over and above that, Orefinders team is going to assist the Pacific Precious team in raising capital for its own balance sheet. So any further money going into Pacific Precious will not come from Orefinders' balance sheet. And in addition to that, we're going to assist them in going public. Again, we're going to attempt to utilize the power ore model that worked well for us, but we'll also evaluate other opportunities, the market pending how that works out. But nonetheless, Orefinders has an early stage, great valuation piece and a very interesting and highly prospective project in PNG, where effectively this team here is chasing gold elephants. Mega deposits is what this opportunity is all about. I've already covered this, I guess, in my previous in the previous slide, but effectively it's 10 million shares equal 40% for Orefinders, us, and we'll have 109 million shares outstanding. Pacific Precious will have 25 million, 10 of which, of course, is for Orefinders. And Pacific Precious is looking to complete a $400,000 seed round private placement. It will do that at 5 cents, which is the same valuation which Orefinders received its 10 million shares at. And if anybody is interested in participating in the Pacific Precious private placement, let me know and I can facilitate, provided you're an accredited investor, et cetera, et cetera. We anticipate that round to close very quickly. There was a lot of competition for Orefinders in coming to an agreement on this project. A lot of very sophisticated people, geologists and financiers were interested in this project, but I think because of relationships, again, Charles is obviously closely part of the Orefinders and Power Ore family and has been working on this project, and Charles has excellent relationships with the two local PNG shareholders, Thomas and Coity. So that certainly assisted in our efforts to acquire a transaction here. So again, mining in PNG, a lot of people don't know where PNG is. It's on the other side of the world. It's just north of Australia. As I said before, it's a very large island. It's sort of perceived as an exotic destination, and it is. It's a beautiful island, lush, tropical, but it's big into mining. It's as we say here, 26% of their GDP and 84% of their export revenue comes from the extractive industry. So obviously, they're very much in favor of mining. It's got about 7 million people. It's got a legal system which is based on British common law. That is very important. So it's got established laws that respect property ownership and stakeholder ownership. It is absolutely key to engage stakeholder and community relations. Those are very important when dealing in Papua New Guinea, and quite frankly, that's key and important when you're doing business in the Abitibi or Peru or anywhere for that matter. But that's something that we pay very close attention to and everywhere we do business. And again, it's so important to have local partners, and I go back to our local shareholders that help facilitate and educate us on making decisions that are best for everyone. And provided everybody adheres to responsible mining, you just don't get any problems from the government. It's really all about local relationships as opposed to the larger government play. So the next steps, what's Pacific Precious going to do? It's going to complete this seed round, this $400,000 financing at 5 cents. It's the seed round. Again, if you want to get into this deal at the early stage, here's an opportunity to be involved. The company is going to use that $400,000 to publish its technical report on the Kuta Ridge to give it its property of merit status. For those who don't know, in order to get a public listing, you need a property of merit. So that will be done. There's potential that we'll do some more exploration within that $400,000 budget, drilling, perhaps. We're not certain at this point in time. But all this will go towards the going public process, where there'll be a subsequent listing on the Toronto Venture Stock Exchange, where there will be a financing, an additional, a much larger financing at that point in time. I certainly expect at much higher valuations than 5 cents, and that money will go towards more extensive drill programs and exploration, and hopefully find something really interesting on this project. So again, these are just a couple of pictures. I encourage you to go to pacificprecious.com. We've got a photo tour which runs through our site visit, and it just shows the infrastructure, it shows the geology, it shows the veins, it shows the artisanal mining, etc. It's actually quite good, and there's also some videos there. So I encourage you to go to pacificprecious.com and check out the photo tour and the videos to give you a feel for the project. It just shows you, look, this is right in, close to a town. It's easy to get to, no helicopters. The mineral, we're not chasing some porphyry system that's a kilometer deep. These veins are right on surface here. Again, here we can see these veins. For the geologist, the picture on the left is quite sexy, and for the layman such as myself, the picture on the right tells you, hey, if the locals are there knee deep in water, they're there for a reason. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, again, my name is Stephen Stewart. I'm the CEO of Orefinders Resources, and you can reach me there, my contacts, anytime to ask questions about how Orefinders is going to benefit from this transaction, or if you want to learn more about Pacific Precious and its Kuta Ridge projects. Thank you for your time.